so you want to make sure if you are typing in our chat box next to the 2, there is a drop down where you can change it to all panelists and attendees. So that way everyone can see what you're typing in the chat, unless you want to send a message to just the panelists, but feel free to type your questions in there as we go along. I'm sure there will be plenty of questions for this one, Andrea. All right, and so the handout for this session is on our website, the event page for Brailing with the Experts. And next week, everything will be moved to our past events page. So that's where you'll see all of the recordings on that agenda. And I'll post that link in just a bit here as well. So our opening code, we do offer in-service and ACV or AP credit. So if you're looking for that, your opening code to write down is commands. I'll type that in the chat, commands, COMMANDS. And I'll tell you at the end how to get that credit from FIMC.
Super. Thank you, Liz.
Thank you, Andrea. Take it away.
All righty. So you are here to learn about refreshable Braille devices, what to choose. There's so many overwhelming choices. If as I'm talking, if you could type in the chat box, how many of you have experience with refreshable Braille displays? Or if you want to do it on a scale of 1 to 3, like, yeah, I'm super proficient as a 3, 2, meh, 1, no, novice. I don't know much about anything. Brilliant. I love it. Darla Bell, brilliant. We use that word a lot here. Or that's probably the Braille device that you use.
Yes. Yeah. So I see lots of 1s, 0s, 1.5, 2, 0. So
zero. We got zeros. I didn't even give that as an option. But okay, that helps me. So please, if you need clarification about anything as I'm going through, type it to Liz. She will pause me when appropriate, and I'll try to keep everybody on the same page, because I want this to be beneficial to you all, and I want you all to learn something and have at least one takeaway from this session and not just be more confused. So I see lots of specific examples of devices being typed in the chat box as well, and some of those we are going to talk about today. So yes, there's so much to choose from and so many considerations, and all of them, they may have similar features, but all of them may look different. They may feel different. There's different nuances to them, and some of them may have different functions than the other. So they have some shared commonalities, but then they also have things that set them apart from the rest. And we'll talk a little bit about that today, and things to consider when you're trying to choose a device for your student. And so the objectives for today are to identify 3 tools or skills students with visual impairments need to know prior to graduating high school. So what our students need to know to be successful when they graduate to reach their post-secondary goals. Identify 3 distinct features between refreshable Braille devices, and name at least 2 devices that can operate as a refreshable Braille display and as a note taker light. And light is in quotes because it's not exactly a refreshable Braille display. It's not exactly a Braille note taker. It falls in the middle. It's a Braille note taker light. We'll talk more about that. So some Braille tech trivia to get your brains thinking. So type your answers in the chat box to the following questions. Number 1. When was the first Braille writer introduced? When was the first Braille writer introduced? Take a guess, or who's faster at using a search engine? That's the name of the game here.
And so we're talking about just not an electronic, like a Braille display, just a Braille writer. Oh, so we have some years here. 1926. That seems very specific. 1926.
Does seem very specific. So I'm being vague here on purpose about what Braille writer I mean. Ooh, could I be referring to the Slate and Stylus? Could I be referring to the Perkins Braille writer? Do I mean electronic? I'm going to talk about the standard one that we use today, the good old Perkins. I can tell they're trying to figure it out. They're typing their answers into their favorite search engine.
Yeah. 1940s, 1900.
All right. Yeah. So some good guesses here. So um, the first Braille writer was actually, Jennifer Drea in the house from Lee County. I think that's the county you're from. It was 1892. So that actually was designed by Frank Hall in 1892. And it is the model that the Perkins based its model off of that design in 1892. Isn't that incredible? And that's what we still use today. That's the technology we still use today. It's tried and true and it works. So that Perkins Braille writer is here to stay. All right, what year was the Braille and Speak introduced? Good old Braille and Speak. Who remembers what the Braille and Speak is? Some of you may not know what that is. I know Sue knows.
We've got 1985, 1983.
I know Sherry knows.
87.
Kay, you're not allowed to play. Kay Ratzliff got it right, 1987. Awesome job. Good Googling skills, everybody. I would have done the same thing. So 1987 is when the Braille and Speak was introduced, which was just a device that allowed Braille input for simple note taking. So if you wanted, and it provided auditory output. So it was just if you wanted to type down a phone number or a shopping list or just any quick information, you had the Braille and Speak. So that was the year I started teaching children who are blind, says Kay, 1987, when that Braille and Speak was introduced. You are a classic, just like the Braille and Speak, Kay. All right, so next up, how long has Refreshable Braille been around? Perkins, solid manual. When the electricity goes off, it still works. Yes, Charlotte, yes. We always got to have that Perkins Braille writer around. So Karen Reno says there were students in the mid-90s using them in classes to take notes and complete work. Mid-90s, getting closer, about 40 years. 1990s, 95. Okay, good guesses here. 1982. The Versa Braille was the first refreshable Braille display available in the United States. So that's what made its introduction into the US. So I Googled all this information to learn. So I'm hoping that I had good skills and found the right information. So last but not, well, second to last question, what tool was developed and evolved along with the Braille code we know today? What tool was developed and evolved along with the Braille code that we know today? Bonus, if you have an idea of when. Yeah, Jennifer Drea, Slate and Stylus. Yes. So going back to that first Braille writer, that was actually the first Braille writer that was around in the 1800s. That is how people produced Braille, was that slate and stylus. Yes, yes, yes. And it still is alive and well today. Sue talked about it in her session, and I know that Miriam Dixon, who's a participant on our webinars, so thanks for being at every single one, Miriam, said she's teaching it to adults, and students can be taught how to use it too. So for those quick, easy notes, and it doesn't need electricity. And so for you all, just type in the chat box as I keep going here. What Braille technology did you know about when you first entered the field? What did you know about? And it could be from low tech, like the Slate and Stylus Perkins, to high tech. What were you familiar with as you started in this field? In 1958, my friend used a Braille writer. Yeah. The Opticon. Oh my gosh. I think I have heard that term, but I can't really tell you exactly what the Opticon is, Natasha. Sue knew the Braille and Speak, Braille Light. Kathy Kompleski, I did not know any, but a student using a Braille and Speak, and she had to learn it quick. Yes. Embossers, large TV, CCTVs.
They mentioned Zippo.
What is, I have never heard of the Zippo. Okay, you're going to have to explain that in the chat box. Or maybe in the debriefing session, you can tell us.
Oh, she said I did nothing. Not a device. She knew nothing.
She knew nothing. And Kay knows almost everything now, so. All right, so thank you for sharing your answers and playing along with me. So just a quick review of why is AT so important for students with visual impairments? Well, it provides equal access because students with vision are incidental learners and they're learning by observing and they can see how technology is being used, what's on the screen. Our students don't have incidental learning, so they need direct instruction in assistive technology and technology, period. Our students need to be provided the opportunity to become digital natives, just like students who are growing up with technology now. And I put it provides equal access. I struggled with that as I was looking over this last night. Is it equal access? It provides access to that printed information, but it depends a lot on formatting, accessibility, and all of that. So I think equality and equity is coming, but it still takes our students a longer time to get to a link on a specific page or to locate something because it's not this quick visual reference. They have to listen or they have to use a refreshable Braille display with Braille under their fingers. It takes them longer. So is that equality? I'm not sure. I'm just posing it out there as a question or something for you to think about technology. And I think it's important for classroom teachers to know that it takes our students longer sometimes, especially when they're learning how to use the technology efficiently. Once they become efficient at that technology, maybe they can find it faster because they're listening faster or whatever it may be. But it may take our students longer to get to that same information it takes someone with sight to locate. It allows them to meet the same standards as other students. And we're going to talk more about what those standards might be. But Florida has standards regarding technology, and technology is integrated into the general education standards. It provides competitive opportunities for our students in education and career. So to be competitive students, if they're in competitive programs like IB, or if they're out there interviewing for jobs, if they have great quick techie skills, that's going to give them a leg above maybe some of the rest of the other applicants. It provides access to multitudes of independent living skills from learning about different recipes and trying new things, social opportunities through social media or email correspondence. It's also the law. So through the 2004 reauthorization of IDEA, it added that students who have an IEP must have assistive technology considered on their IEP. And I have at the bottom in italics, preparing students for the future. And that is actually a mission statement of Hillsborough County Public Schools. And you all have mission statements attached to your school districts as well. And I like to look at those when we're talking about assistive technology at the table and what our students need to have access to and what they need to learn. And think back to this mission statement. Are we preparing our students for the future as we're considering this piece of technology? Or are we just teaching technology for the sake of teaching technology? Is this something that's really going to prepare this particular student for the future? So a second look at what high school students who are blind should know about technology is an article that was published in the Journal of Technology and Persons with Disabilities in 2018. And this article was written by Galen Kapperman and Stacy Kelly. This article actually revisits an older article from 2004 that covered the same content, and it listed 14 technologies that students need to know by the time they graduate high school. Well, that was in 2004 when they identified 14 technologies. Anybody want to take a stab at how many technologies they identified in this last article in 2018? Any guesses? 1,800. All right.
50.
Amanda Ashburn, pretty close there. It was just over 30 different technologies that students should be familiar with and know about by the time they leave high school. I'm not trying to stress anyone out, by the way. This is just what an article said. But it just, I hope, brings the importance of why our students need to have technology at their fingertips. So the reason this article was written is that they noticed as professionals in the field that there was a lack of technology skills and proficiency in that technology among students who are blind. And so that kind of was the emphasis on creating the whole new certification through ACVREP of CADIS, Certified Assistive Technology Instructional Specialist. So that was kind of the support for the need for that, because TVIs have a lot to focus on. So they were thinking, okay, we can create a position or a professional in the field that knows just about this one piece of the ECC. Oh, I did have over 30 recommended on the slide. So oh, the answer was there. Oh, well. Good reading. So some of the skills that were in that article are from email programs, Braille reading, a minimum of 30 words per minute, but that's really, really low. As I think Sue brought up yesterday, for college, students have to read at 250 plus words per minute, or they should be reading at 250 plus words per minute. Braille note takers, but not all of our students are going to be college bound, right? So we're going to have all different kinds of learners and all different kinds of students. Braille note takers connected to a computer, tablet, or smartphone, cloud-based storage, troubleshooting technology and maintenance, keystroke commands and keyboarding, GPS and wayfinding apps, voice assistants. So this is just a small smattering of some of the things that students should be familiar with by the time that they leave high school. Any comments or questions about that, type them in the chat box. I'll keep moving on. All right, so what is AT for students with visual impairments? It's a plethora of things, but how vendors delineate products is typically low vision and blindness products. You see that quite often, and low vision is going to refer to those monoculars, video magnifiers, large print, or screen magnification. And Karen had typed in the chat box, that's the technology that she was familiar with when she entered the field. And then there's blindness products such as screen readers, scanners, OCR apps, and Braille displays. But what about dual media learners? They fall in the middle here, right? So the dual media learners may have their foot in both worlds and may use a variety of that technology. So really, truly, for our students, they're going to have multiple tools at their disposal, whether they are low tech or high tech. So a variety of tools to choose from to complete daily tasks efficiently across a variety of settings is what AT is for our students. How do you choose that assistive technology? Well, your awesome assessments that you complete every 3 years, the functional vision, the learning media, and expanded core curriculum assessments. And of course, assistive technology falls right into that ECC category. And again, remember, assistive technology must be considered for each child who has an IEP. So you definitely want to have a blurb about assistive technology in your assessments and in the present level. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about the SET framework. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that. If you are, type Y in the chat box. If you're not, press no. But SET stands for Student, Environment, Tools, and Task. And it's just a framework to get you thinking about technology for your students. So, and it's a way to break it down so you're looking at the important pieces when you're making those choices. So I see lots of no's. So so here's one takeaway for you today: the SET framework. And Joy Zabala has worked a ton on this. If you're not familiar with her, you can just look up Joy Zabala SET framework or either of those separately, and you will see her whole website about the SET framework. But I could do a whole session on assessment and the SET framework. So won't go too deep. Disclaimer here: instruction in a refreshable Braille display device does not replace instruction and use of a traditional computer. Somebody asked in the previous session about typing and keyboarding, and keyboarding is a critical skill that our students need to learn to use, whether they have low vision or whether they are totally blind. Our students need to know how to quickly and efficiently use a keyboard. I think it's important that our students have tools, multiple tools. And I know that is an overwhelming task as well, but it is, thank you, Liz, for the set framework in the chat box, perfect. Keyboarding is just so important. You can be a very fast typer. You can quickly and efficiently use commonly used software and programs that are out there that are out in the workforce. And I always liken it to, you know, just because you think a student may not be college bound or going into a career, it doesn't matter. Computers and keyboards are used in so many different workplaces and work sites, whether you go to, when you go to get your car worked on, they're typing into a computer, they're figuring out where parts are, they're using computers at AutoZone, they're using them at Walmart. It just may be a different version of a computer, but they need to have those skills and concepts. And keyboarding I have on here is Queen, which is queen and king for those that can type, because queens rule too. So it is Queen. It is very, very important that our students learn how to use a keyboard and learn how to use a Windows operating system. I know lots of people have different opinions on that, but I believe it is critical for our students, because that is vastly what is used in the workforce today. Okay, enough about that. Refreshable Braille displays and note takers. A tool for the toolbox. So again, I am talking about refreshable Braille displays here, but your students must know how to use a QWERTY keyboard. And I'll say it again and again and again. So some pros and cons to using refreshable Braille devices. Pros. It's Braille access to digital text. So you are opening up the world of information. We have all this information at our fingertips with ease, accessing print. So our students should have that same opportunity to access it in their most efficient reading medium. It's consistently crisp Braille, but I'm going to say that with a caveat that it has to be the quality of the Braille display. Navigation by different text elements, heading, paragraphs, characters, etc. So to make the process of searching for information fast and efficient, they have to know about those different elements that they can navigate by on a Braille display. We know that on a keyboard, you can navigate headings by using H when you're using a screen reader. So there's quick, efficient ways to also do that on a Braille display. You can switch between contracted and uncontracted Braille on some Braille displays. So if you have contracted Braille as a setting, you can, there's a chord that you can hit on some Braille displays, not all of them, to switch between the contracted or uncontracted version. It provides a multimodal learning and access. So students can have a voice on if they want, and the Braille, or they can have just the Braille, they can have just the voice. So they can make choices about how they want to access certain information. It also can provide more opportunities to practice emerging Braille skills, as we just discussed in our previous session, buzzing about Braille. All right, cons. So it's limited in how much information is presented at once. You can only read one line at a time, because right now, well, we'll talk more about the Canute. I know you're thinking about that multi-line refreshable Braille display as I say this, but it's the only one right now. So you can only read one line at a time in other Braille displays, and 99% of them. So there is that limitation. You miss out on important formatting that's going on in the page. Accessibility depends on formatting of the document provided. So again, if you're looking at a website that doesn't have alt text, or if you're looking at a PDF that is just a picture and not a true PDF, it's not going to be accessible with a screen reader or a refreshable Braille display. So you're really dependent on that accessibility of that digital document. Success on using the device depends on training. So if the student is not proficient in the device, and I think Sherry mentioned this in the last session, is that, oh, I touched something and it moved. Sorry. So success on using the device depends on training. So if the student's not proficient in the device and they take it home and they get really frustrated, that could have build that negativity toward that device. And so it could prevent students from being more willing to learn and use that device if they're purely frustrated because of the they're not proficient in it yet. So those are some things that can happen. And it's not what is typically used for employment, as I was just discussing. Our students still need to learn how to use a QWERTY keyboard. And I would really say learning how to navigate in a Windows environment, because that is pretty standard, at least in this part of the United States. So those are some of the pros and cons. If you think of any others, whether it's a pro or a con, please type it in the chat box so everybody else can see what you're thinking. All right, should I teach Braille on a refreshable Braille display? If you were in the last session, you should be able to easily answer this question. The answer is no. It should purely be used as a supplement while students are learning how to use or learning how to read Braille. It provides exposure and more opportunities to get real Braille under their fingertips. And devices and apps should be incorporated into a balanced Braille reading program and not used as the sole instructional tool. So again, here's that standard quote I have in my presentations about refreshable Braille displays. And this is from that Tips for Braille Literacy website, and the link is at the bottom. And again, Tessa McCarthy will actually probably be addressing this in her session tomorrow. So please join in. But students who use embossed Braille learn essential reading skills such as the proper hand movement and finger positions. In addition, students who used embossed Braille learn crucial reading skills such as sentence structure, paragraph structure, grammar, and punctuation. Although it is important for young students who use Braille to learn beginning reading skills using embossed Braille, they should be introduced to electronic Braille at an early age so that they can become familiar with that tool. So please use it as a supplement. And if your students are flying with Braille and flying with refreshable Braille, by all means, that could be their main mode of getting information. All right, so digging into the nitty gritty, some of the major players that are out there that you are probably familiar with are Humanware. Everybody knows about Humanware devices. Somebody mentioned the Brailliant or the Braille Note Touch Plus earlier. There is HIMS, and I always forget what HIMS stands for. I really need to get that into my brain. I see Liz thinking. I think she's going to look it up for me and put it in the chat box. And Freedom Scientific, which is now under the umbrella of Vispero, they have a slew of refreshable Braille devices as well. And I have Orbit Research down here with a question. I just think they are up and coming. They're not a really super well-known brand, but if you have seen the Orbit Reader 20 from APH, that is an Orbit Research refreshable Braille display, and they actually just came out with a 40 cell. Themselves. So I think they're coming into the fold. I haven't had too much experience with them outside of the Orbit Reader 20, but I think they're starting to make a name for themselves. So as I shared earlier, these Braille devices share a lot of common features. So Braille displays, if you're not familiar, they have a series of pins that raise and lower, and it's a mechanical system. And I think they call it, it's piezoelectric is actually the terminology for what's happening inside a refreshable Braille display. That's how the pins raise and lower. I don't know too much about that, but it's very fascinating to me. They have a single line display, so just one row of refreshable Braille, and it usually ranges from 12 to 80 characters. Sherry, I think you are not muted. If you would not mind making sure that you are muted, that would be great. Thank you. There is either 6 or 8 dots in a single cell. So if it has 8 dots, it has that ability to display computer Braille. And if you were joined our first session, Kathy Krumplesky addressed computer braille and Banna's stance on that, and that they are encouraging companies who make these devices to not make that the default, because it really is still the default. So I had to try to learn some computer braille myself, and I didn't retain it. So I always have to look things up, but it is out there, and you can find ways to teach yourself and to learn the symbols you at least need to know, like periods or how to capitalize a letter in computer braille, because it asks you to enter computer braille when you enter in a password on some devices as the default. So it's always like, oh, hold on, it's going to take me a minute. So 6 or 8 dots. Then what is computer braille, please? Okay, so before Unified English Braille, there were separate codes for lots of things. I'm going to try to be brief about this. Kathy K could probably do a better job explaining succinctly, but so before Unified English Braille, we had English Braille American Edition, and that did not allow for a mathematics code or a computer Braille code. So they created Nemeth code for mathematics. So we had English Braille American Edition, Nemeth code for mathematics, and there was a computer Braille code, also a chemistry code. So lots of different codes for different purposes, for different subject matters. So now with Unified English Braille, it has the ability to do its own code, and it's all encompassing for math, literary, and computer. So it's just one code, but thank you, Kathy. Computer Braille is its own separate code, and it's been used for coding. And so they needed those extra dots for some spatial references and to make other symbols, and to also provide like capitalization and stuff like that, instead of using cells next to other Braille cells. Yes, Susan, I mean ASCII Braille. So it's either known as ASCII Braille or computer Braille. All righty. So Braille keyboard. So yeah, typically they have a Braille keyboard on the device ready for you to type in Perkins style. And they all have some sort of navigational features, but where those navigation buttons or bars or directional pads are depends on the device. All right. Oh, hey, I had a whole slide dedicated to what's up with those extra dots. So, and I think I wanted to pose that out there to you all as a question. What do those extra dots mean? Well, we kind of just covered that. So 8-dot Braille displays display computer Braille. And so instead of using like a .6 to capitalize the next letter, it would utilize those extra cells below to indicate that capital letter. So I hope that helps a little bit to understand the use of that that code. But again, I think as Kathy said, and she can type in the chat box if I'm wrong or if I'm right, and that Banna is advocating that that is no longer the default for displays. So it's the 8 dots is either for computer Braille or marking the location of the cursor on the computer. So the dots will flash in the bottom, or one dot will flash in those bottom dots to indicate that that's where the cursor is. Thank you, Kathy. Yes, Banna is advocating that it is not an official code right now, because it is not. That would be UEB and Nemeth and Music Braille, I think. Ooh, Colleen coming in with HIMS, Human Information Management Systems. Thanks, Colleen. That was going to kill me. All right, so I talked a lot about status cells last session, and so here's some more robust information about status cells. I wanted to quickly get through the actual apps last session and not focus too much on this, so I hope this helps clarify. So it's kind of like a hidden status message, as I was saying earlier. So for example, if you set the status cell preference to show general display status, and this can all be found in your VoiceOver settings, it shows the status about either VoiceOver, the Braille display, or the system. So if, for example, you get an email and the little status symbols pop up and they change to indicate, oh, hey, something happened in the background. Do you want to know about it? Then you can press what's called a cursor routing key, which it's a button above the Braille cell. We'll talk more about that. And to open up and expand that message. And then to exit that message, you would hit another cursor routing key and you would go back to what you were originally looking at. So that's an efficient way to get access to information that's happening in the background of your device. If you need to toggle back and forth between certain things, or you can just keep doing the task you're doing. But it does take up cells on your refreshable Braille display, and it can take up anywhere from 2 to 4 cells. Now, so that's when it comes into, do you want to really choose a refreshable Braille display that only has 14 cells? If you're going to use those status cells, or would you want to choose something that has more cells to be able to utilize those cells? You can always turn them off so that you can access the full line of refreshable Braille. So, note takers versus refreshable Braille. What is the difference? So in brief, and then I'll go into details into these different categories. Braille note takers function independently on their own, and they have their very own operating system, and they are a very robust device just by themselves. Light note takers, and I put light in quotes, are robust Braille displays with note-taking capabilities. So they have limited function on their own, but they can also be paired with an external device like a tablet or computer with a screen reader and become even more robust. Then there are refreshable Braille displays, which I feel this category is starting to dwindle, and you will see that too today. It is driven by an external operating system. So when we were talking about apps in the last session and just using purely a refreshable Braille display, it looks real cool on its own. You're like, yeah, this is such a cool piece of technology, but you turn it on and it doesn't really do anything. It just says starting, or the name of the device and the serial number. So it's a cool looking device on its own. It has to have a screen reader to drive it. So it really needs that. That's what translates the Braille on the device, is that screen reader. So it's just a cool looking device on its own, but it needs a friend to work. All right, so refreshable Braille displays. Again, it is not a standalone device. I have a picture here on the screen with some icons of a cute little refreshable Braille display with a little Bluetooth symbol going to a tablet sort of device, and they need to be together to work. It could be a computer with JAWS or NVDA. It could be an Android tablet using TalkBack. So there's a variety of ways that refreshable Braille display can work. And again, that translates the Braille. There's no internal translation happening on just purely a refreshable Braille display. It has either a micro USB or Bluetooth connection. So there may be some devices out there that still need to be hooked into a computer via USB, or it's going to have Bluetooth. Anybody remember the Refreshable Braille 18 that APH used to have? Anybody remember that little guy? Yes, I got some yeses. I do, yay! I loved that device so much. I thought it was just so easy to use, and a really friendly, small, refreshable Braille display. Hey, I remember it too. I used it. And so unfortunately, that is not really a supported device anymore, but that was a refreshable Braille display. So if you're familiar with that, you're familiar with what the functions of just simply a refreshable Braille display can do. Any questions about refreshable Braille displays before I move on? I see a hand up, but I'm not sure if that was on purpose. Oh, it was just Sue. Never mind. Okay, so oh yeah, here's some examples of some refreshable Braille displays. So the good, tried and true Freedom Scientific Focus Blue family. They have Braille displays that range from 14 to 80 cells, and on the low end, with the smaller, so the less cells, of course, it costs less, more cells, more money. So The smaller one is $1,295 and it goes all the way up to $7,995. They have, as you can see from the picture, lots of thumb keys, panning buttons, and cursor routing keys, which actually it's hard to see the cursor routing keys. I shouldn't say that you can see them from that picture, but because they're also a black dot on the black background. So, but they are there, I promise. But it has all sorts of different buttons that have different functions. And like I had said in the previous session, this is what I originally started teaching to some of my students was the Focus 40. And then when I got the Refreshable Braille 18, I sort of navigated to that device because it was just a great little device and very portable. But again, the amount of cells, you know, not so great with just 18, especially if you have emerging Braille readers. All right, it now has, and it didn't have this before, back in the day, built-in BRF book reader and a scratch pad. So even these really, they're a little bit smarter than just a typical refreshable Braille display, but it's still not super robust. It doesn't have any Wi-Fi. And I think somebody had mentioned that in the chat box as a con, that they don't have Wi-Fi access, but they're getting smarter, as you're going to learn. They also have no internal memory, and they don't have, yeah, just no internal memory, no way to save anything onto the device. Oh, I did want to mention though about these particular Braille displays that they are very compatible with uh, all operating systems, and they work very well, of course, with JAWS, because JAWS is a Freedom Scientific product and it falls under that Vispero umbrella as well. It's a Freedom Scientific product. They're very ergonomic. They have great navigation features and a variety of ways to access information. And uh, when you use this device with JAWS, it actually has a Braille study mode, which is pretty cool. And you can set up things to automatically refresh too, to help build that fluency, and you can make a game out of it. So it does have a nice Braille study mode built in when you use this display with JAWS, just as a little caveat there. But it does work with NVDA, it works on iOS, it works on Android, so they're a pretty good little refreshable Braille display. Humanware Brailliant displays. I saw somebody mention this earlier, and these come in 14, 32, 40, or 80 cells, and they range from $995. That would be the 14 cell. Then going up to the 80 cell would be $7,985. And so these have, you saw how the Focus 40 had some different bars and command buttons on the sides. These displays also have command buttons, but they're just a different type of shape, not necessarily like kind of a rocker bar, but they're just buttons, small circular buttons. And those are on the ones that are 32 cells and up. It's not going to be on the smaller display. And as you can notice, they have 4 thumb keys along the front for the smaller displays, but when you get up to the 80 and you have all of those cells, and so Amanda, to go back to that computer Braille, a lot of coders and people who do a lot of heavy computer work, they're typically using an 80 cell Braille display so they can get those full lines of code and really look through things with a fine-tooth comb. So that's where those big displays come into play. And so you can notice they have many more thumb keys, because once you get all the way to the right side of that display, you're going to need a thumb key there, or maybe a line only goes to the center of the display. You're going to want a thumb key there to navigate as well. Depends on the formatting of the document you're looking at. So those are some other options from Humanware. HIMS also has some options available, and they sell Handy Tech refreshable Braille displays, and they have one called the Basic Braille, and that ranges anywhere from $3,000 to $8,000, and they have 40, 64, 80, or 84 cells. I think I made a typo. I didn't go back and look at this again, but I put 84 cells here, and maybe I made a mistake. It's very possible. So I'm not sure where the 84 cells came from. So somebody fact check me on that, or I will later. So the top picture there, that's of the basic Braille. And do you notice something missing from this device? Anybody? Thumb keys. Okay, yep. Thumb keys, a keyboard. Yes, two things missing. So they have different navigation. So you can see there's some buttons on the right and left hand side of the Refreshable Braille. So I'm assuming that's the navigation. But yeah, there's no Braille keyboard either. So it's just a little bit different. This is purely at its core a Refreshable Braille display. That's all it does. That's its job. Then there's the basic Braille Plus, which is very similar to that picture above, except that it has the Braille keyboard. So it does a little bit more than the basic Braille, but that's at 3,590. It only comes in 40 cells. Then here's our light note takers. And I had started using that phrase a while ago, but then I heard, or I read somewhere, they're called smart Braille displays. So you could go either way. They're either a note taker light or it's a smart Braille display. You choose. I will stick with my light though. But if you do hear that term smart Braille display, this is what they're referring to. So it is a standalone device. It just may have some limited functions when it's not connected to an external device, but still, you can do a lot with it on its own. So you can do note taking. Sometimes they have a calculator. You could check the date and time, which is really nice, because that would be one question I would always get from one of my students. What time is it? What time is it? What time is it? And I was like, okay, JAWS F12 is your key. So please check the time yourself. So anyway, so there's tons of functions that some of these note taker lights actually have built into them so they can function on their own, and they have their own Braille translation happening on board. So that's what makes these a little bit different. And I'm starting to really see that this is becoming a very robust category of Braille displays. But it has no operating system, like no big robust operating system like a tablet or like a Braille note taker does. Oh, thank you, Sherry, for fact checking me about that. The basic Braille Plus, 84 is an option. That's interesting. Oh, maybe the 4 cells is for the status symbols. If you don't want to give up those 80 cells, it's for those 4 cells or for those status symbols. Sue Grossman's asking for the cost. I think that'd be the 8,000. It'd probably be $8,000. So I put the highest last. Interesting. Thank you so much. Oh, wow.
I think Sue was asking about the light, but you're introducing a category on this next slide here, the light note takers you're going to start talking about. So then you'll give the prices.
Yes, so this is just a category of devices. Thank you very much for helping me clarify that. Oh, wait, what? Are you having deja vu? Didn't you just see brilliant displays on a different slide? Man, so this Sue and I were talking about technology yesterday and just how it changes so fast and how frustrating that can also be. It's a great thing, but it's also a frustrating thing. And so lo and behold, in my inbox, I was going through my emails and I had an email from Florida Vision Technology announcing coming December 2020, the HumanWare Brilliant Braille displays are smarter and faster. So they have redone one of their Brilliant displays, the 40 cell, and they have made it smarter. It's not just a refreshable Braille display anymore. So the 40 cell Brilliant is going to have now a built-in editor with the ability to work with Word documents, BRFs, and text files in addition to other formats. It's going to have onboard Braille translation, so it's going to have that important component we were just discussing. It doesn't need to have a Braille display, a screen reader, sorry, to drive that Braille translation. There will be no need to convert files to open to transfer to a sighted peer. It'll have file management on it, so there'll be a way to save information directly to that device. It will have Wi-Fi built in. So to me, when Wi-Fi is put onto something, that means automatic updates pushed to the device, which is great. You no longer have to download software, connect it via USB to your computer. It just automatically pops up on your device, which is super, super nice. And it makes it easier to stay updated so that your device works more efficiently. You can also access online services such as NLS, NFB Newsline, Bookshare, and more. And this one in particular has an exam mode, which I thought was really cool. So it's great for standardized testing or exams, it says. I'm not sure how that would work here in Florida, so I'm looking to you, Kathy K, to discuss that point with later. But that is an option on there. I don't know, other states, they may have different parameters when it comes to technology that can be used during standardized testing. But for sure, it could be used for test in the classroom, etc.
So Teresa is asking if that one is similar to the Braille Note Apex then.
The Apex was actually a full Braille note taker. So I would liken that more to the Braille Note Touch Plus. All righty. Oh, and the reason I have the little 14 cell guy up here too is because in Florida Vision Technologies email, and I'm just throwing this out there, I am not promoting this product. I am just throwing it out there that they said if you pre-order this Brailliant 40, the new one, you can get one of the little guys for free. So just throwing that out there, free Braille display for pre-ordering the Brailliant, the new Brailliant, the new refreshed one. So even as I was writing this presentation and planning for it, technology updated and changed. That happens all the time, all the time. All righty. So some examples of these Braille note taker lights. You may have been hearing a lot about the Mantis Q40 and the Chameleon 20 recently, if you follow APH closely, because these are their devices that they developed in partnership with Humanware. So these actually have the Humanware components, they're Humanware displays. So if you're familiar with Humanware products, it has that same feel and use and navigation. I am in love with these two devices. I really again, the Chameleon 20, I was a part of that committee when they were coming up with ideas, and so was Liz Anderson, actually. She was on there. And so I am a little partial to that device, but for the price point of this device and for its ease of navigation and its intuitiveness, they really built this device with kids in mind. So many devices, Braille devices, were built with college students in mind or people that are in the workforce. So these were actually designed with kids in mind and different types of Braille learners. So there's added navigation features, and like when you get to the end of a menu, instead of it just kind of stopping and not going forward, it actually says back. Do you want to go back? Or this is the end of the menu. So it's just nice that it gives you that, oh, I'm done here. I need to move somewhere else. I'm at the end. So I just, there's so much more. I could go on and on. But anyway, so the Chameleon 20 is 20 cells of refreshable Braille. It has the Braille keyboard and it has those Humanware thumb keys along the front, and it also has a home button in the center. So that's something that's a little bit different too. It has an editor, a calculator, date and time, and a library. So you can access Bookshare, you can access NLS and NFB Newsline on this as well, and build your library directly on your device, which is nice. And it has Wi-Fi capabilities. So you don't need to be connected to an external device to access literacy. You just need a Wi-Fi connection, which we know that can be something that's difficult to obtain sometimes, especially during this time. The Mantis Q40 is another one, and that comes in at $2,495. And these are non-quota prices, by the way. So if you just want to directly purchase these, this is what the cost would be. It's 40 cells, but look at that, guys. Look at that picture. Hold on, I want to grab my Mantis. Oh no. Oh, this is bad. Okay, so I'm not doing a good job here. Here, if I hold it like this. So this is the Mantis Q40 in my hands, and it's a full QWERTY keyboard. Woo! So you got 40 cells of Braille. You have a full keyboard. This is just amazing. I love this. And there are other devices that I think HIMS has some other devices that have full keyboards as well. But this is just a little bit different, and it's a great, wonderful device. And again, that has the same exact functions that the Chameleon 20 has. And oh yes, Colleen, thank you for mentioning it. The Chameleon comes with stickers. It comes with multitudes of different color cases, and just super fun for kids. It makes it really fun and motivating, and it's an exciting tool to use. And the stickers have Braille on them too, and they're tactile. So very cool device, designed with kids in mind, and it's something that they can grow with. Oh, I want to mention this about the Chameleon too. I almost forgot. It has a headphone jack on the side, and it eventually will have auditory output as well. So this device has lots of potential to grow. Like where I was talking about earlier, it's frustrating when technology changes. Well, wouldn't it be nice if it stayed the same device, but like just grew and more functions were added without it breaking or crashing or dying? So let's hope that's what is in the future for the Chameleon 20. Then there's the Q-Braille XL, which comes in at $3,195, and this is a HIMS product. So it's 40 cells, and it's kind of this marriage between a QWERTY keyboard and a Braille keyboard, which is pretty cool. So the keys on the on the Q Braille XL, they have function keys that go across the top like a QWERTY keyboard. It has a Windows key. It has Control Alt Option and Escape and all that good stuff. So you can still quickly access important computer shortcuts instead of having to memorize a chord on a Braille keyboard. And so that just makes life so much better. So it's a nice marriage between the two. So depending on what your students' needs are, that might be the best refreshable Braille display for them. I see a question from Miriam. You can do 6-key entry on the Chameleon on the QWERTY keyboard. You can do 6-key entry on the Mantis with the QWERTY keyboard. Yes. The Chameleon is just strictly the Braille input. And down at the bottom, I just have a couple others to mention because, like I said, this is a big category of refreshable Braille displays, and I think it's going to continue growing in this fashion. The Orbit Reader 20, that's okay, Miriam. It's a lot to keep track of. The Orbit Reader 20, which is available through APH as well, or Orbit Research. So that's 20 cells of refreshable Braille. It has a directional pad, and you can do some simple note taking and stuff like that on it. The same with the Braille Trail Reader LE. Which I think is 14 cells. I can't quite remember off the top of my head. Then there's the Braille Me, which was put out by National Braille Press. And this is an interesting device, and I just want to talk about it quickly. And it's not piezoelectric, I think. It's like magnetic, how the pins are pushed up. We have some in our loan library if you're ever curious or want to try it out. And so you can actually depress the pins down physically. Which I don't know, I'm not a tactile Braille reader, but you're supposed to use a light touch, so I imagine you wouldn't be pushing them down, but it might not bring that crispness that you would expect. So I'm not sure because I'm not a tactile Braille reader, but that's just something I would think about when looking at the device. I would actually get it under my students' hands though to verify that, but they were very easy to like press down and depress, so I'm not sure of the crispness of that. Thank you, Liz, for verifying. The Braille Trail reader has 14 cells. So those are some examples of Braille note taker lights. And this one's cool. I learned about this one through Dave Wilkinson at a presentation he did at ATIA. And this is a handy tech device that was sold through HIMS, or is sold through HIMS. And it's the Actilino. Has such a cool name, Actilino. And you can see it's very ergonomically different where the Braille cells are actually in this curve in the Braille display. So when you're reading and you're using the thumb keys and you have your fingers on a curve, they fall directly on the finger pad. I just find this very interesting, an interesting concept. I've never played with one or seen a Braille reader use them, but that's very interesting. So It has a speaker on it, so I imagine it has some auditory output. It's $1,995, but something that also sticks out to me about this device is it supports music braille, which I thought was really cool. So if you have a student who's just excelling in music and that's their goal in love and life, this might be a tool that meets that task, something that they need to access. But you would have to look at the other components as well to make sure it meets up with your students' needs. So pretty honorable mention there for the Actilino. All right, so Braille note takers. Whew, last category. And I, it may be me, but I'm really only familiar with two current Braille note taker devices. There were more, I feel like, and now it's like down to two. And I have a theory on that, but anyway, I could be wrong. And if you know of other note takers that are new, that are being used out there, please type them in the chat box. So Braille note takers are another category, and they are an all-in-one device. So it's like having a computer in your backpack, or some could maybe fit in a large pocket, maybe. Not really. They'd have to be like those big old Janko jeans. I don't know if you remember those from the 90s. Terrible, terrible fashion mistakes there. So like I was saying, they have their own operating system, but they can also be paired with other devices. So you could access a computer with them, or you could access a tablet with them, but still on their own, they probably have their own tablet or maybe a operating system that is on most or on a lot of tablets and phones. They can typically be used with an embosser, which is a nice feature. And they typically have better math support for Braille. And again, though, I want to say this because I feel I just observe this out in our field that kiddos get a Braille note taker, but then they don't learn how to use a computer. They don't learn how to touch type on a QWERTY keyboard, and it's just touted as this end all be all device, and this is how they're going to access information. These are tools for their toolboxes. Yes, they are super expensive, but these are, again, tools for their toolboxes, and they should learn about them. They should know that they're out there so that they can make an informed decision about what works best for them. But at the end of the day, they still need to learn how to use a QWERTY keyboard. It's not the end all be all and the only device that they should have. So yes, Liz?
So we did have a question, if you could explain what the thumb keys do on these devices, and then just Amanda was curious about kind of the ergonomics of having your typing your input keys above your display, your Braille display.
So, okay, so the first question was, what was it? I'm sorry. I started thinking about that.
Yeah, the thumb keys.
Thumb keys, thank you. So the thumb keys are used for navigation. I can demonstrate this in the debriefing room, so it actually gives you a better idea, but it's for navigation purposes of moving that the cursor if it's on the computer. And then there's also ones that pan the Braille, because it's, remember, depending on the size of your display, it's only going to show maybe 18 cells of Braille or 20 cells of Braille. So there may be more information that needs to be shown, and so you want to use those thumb panning keys to navigate the Braille, whereas the thumb keys on the outer edges typically are for navigation around the environment that you're in. I hope that makes sense. That's a whole nother webinar, but thank you for asking. Oh, and then the other one was the ergonomics. So that's all going to depend on your students, but you can see it's pretty common that they are designed with the Braille keyboard above and the Braille display below. So typing above and then coming down and checking your work, I would think is the thought process behind it. I really don't honestly know too much about the design, because when we think about a Perkins Braille writer, they're typing below where their actual Braille is. So Uh, it could be the mechanics of the device, just how it's put together, or there could be maybe some research out there that supports this design. Liz, you have
Well,
input?
I'm just thinking to when you're typing, our hands aren't flat, our fingers are curved. So you do, if you look at your own keyboard, you would see there would be space there for a row of refreshable braille. And I do think it would probably be easier to drop down than
I agree.
reaching up. Yeah.
I agree. And I remember on the Refreshable Braille 18, you could actually reverse it. And I'd do that on accident sometimes. And I'd be like, my Braille's upside down. What's going on? No, I reversed the display. So you could actually switch it where the Refreshable Braille was on top or on the bottom. But anyway.
And Karen did make the point that if it was swapped, then you would probably be pressing the keys with your hands while you're reading the display. So
Very, very great
I
point.
know.
Thank you very much, Karen. Thank you. Awesome. Yes. See, we have, this is why it's called working with the experts, because we're really not the experts. You all out there are. So that we all come together to be together. All right. Braille note taker examples. So we have the Braille Note Touch Plus 32, which is at $5,695, and the HIMS Polaris, which is at $5,495. And these are the two I think that are probably the most widely used and disseminated and taught. If there's anything else I am missing, please type it in the chat box, because I love to learn about what devices are out there. So these two devices are both Google certified devices, and they can both be hooked up to a screen, so you can see what's happening on the device. And so often, this kind of got a bee in my bonnet the other day. I was looking for a picture of the Braille Note Touch Plus, and every single one of them showed it with the Braille keyboard off and just the tablet, and having students type in the on-screen Braille keyboard. Personally, I do not agree with that method. And it's also very ticky to enter in Braille on the Braille on-screen keyboard. So that Braille keyboard needs to be on top of that device. And I think it's really important to have it closed. And yes, you may as a teacher want to see what's going on that device, or maybe a parent does, but you can use an HDMI cord and hook it into a screen and see what's going on. And that way the student has a much easier time inputting the chords and commands and using the Braille input instead of fumbling with the on-screen keyboard, which can be really ticky and behave badly. So that's just my 2 cents. I think it's important to have that on there. And plus it protects the screen. It has a nice soft cover and really protects that screen as well. Alrighty, so that was my high horse about that. Oh, the American Foundation for the Blind article, I have a link here that is actually a review of both devices from an end user standpoint. I can sit here and talk to you about these devices and what they do all day. I'm not the end user though. I'm not going to tell you which device is going to work best for your student. That's for you to figure out alongside your student. And I'm going to talk more about that in a minute. But the notable quote that I pulled from this article, which I encourage you to read if you're considering either of these devices, read it with your student. Have your student read it or listen to it with a screen reader. Because I think it's important information to know about. But he gave a nice quote that says, the Braille Sense Polaris behaves more like a traditional note taker to me, whereas the touch makes me feel as though I'm using an Android device with a Braille display included. So, and that's essentially what the Braille Note Touch Plus is. It is an Android tablet. You have access to that screen by flipping up the Braille keyboard, and it is a tablet. So really great quote to summarize the difference between these two devices. And the Braille Sense Polaris that you can see on the right, it has a tiny screen that displays print, but you can hook it up again into a larger screen to see what's actually going on. And as a teacher, that was a really important feature for me when I was teaching student how to use the Braille Note Touch Plus, was being able to see that what's going on, help me problem solve alongside that student. and to see what was going on and what was happening. Or sometimes the student would tell me, that's not working. And I'm like, it's right there, I can see it. But that's a whole nother story. Anyway, you have to be rich to be a blind adult. Yeah, a lot of these are very expensive devices, but you have to also think of other things that maybe they're not paying for, like a car insurance. So there might be other things that it's kind of give and take. I'm not sure though. It all depends. So Jamie Pauls was the guy who wrote that article, but he also said, which was really interesting, what he liked about the Polaris was that he could listen to his music anywhere he was on the Polaris. And that was big for him. So when he was taking notes or checking emails or doing work, he wanted to have music on in the background. Well, as soon as he would leave the music player on the Braille Note Touch Plus, the music would stop. So he couldn't have that music playing simultaneously. So for him to be able to make that decision, like based on if that's an important factor to him, I think that's important. And our students need to be able to learn how to do stuff like that too, and figure out what they prefer and what their preferences are. Oh, so I kind of already talked about this, that the Braille input on the screen is not always the most efficient. So I really do recommend closing that screen cover, and use an HDMI cable and hook it up to an external screen if possible. And that worked best for me to teach myself, so then I could go back and teach my student more effectively. And I used it with the Zoom app with my student. Now, granted, the student I was working with at the time already knew how to get the Zoom app up. He knew how to share his screen. There were just things he didn't know in the Keysoft, the software that's on the Braille Note Touch Plus. There were things he didn't know how to do efficiently, and that's what I was working on with him. So it was really great using that HDMI cable because I could really see what was going on. And so I taught myself that way. Then he would share his screen during our Zoom meetings. Um, and it was wonderful because I could see exactly what he was doing and tell him if, oh, well, you missed this, or look at this context menu. What is the shortcut for that? So wonderful, wonderful. It made life just so much easier, and it was great. All right, so you know about all that. Now what do you choose? So we always want to go back to that assessment process and looking at the student, looking at their environment, and looking at the task that they need to complete, and then trialing tools. So looking at the tools that they could use or that they already know how to use to accomplish those tasks. So it's really important that you involve that student in the decision-making process when possible. So trialing and demoing devices, and I'll talk more about where you can get devices if you're looking at trialing. So some considerations when you're looking at refreshable Braille displays. We talked about all the things that they kind of have in common very generally earlier, but these are things you want to think about in detail when you're actually drilling down to choose the device for your student. The refreshable Braille display size. How fast are they reading on a display that's 14 cells versus 40 cells? Are they reading fluently when they have to pan that Braille? So that's something that you would want to look at. The refresh rate of the refreshable Braille. So does it refresh quickly, or is it a slow refresh rate? Is there a delay? The feel of the pens and the tactile resolution is important. I kind of talked about that, like between the Braille Me and some other devices. Like I wasn't too sure about that resolution of the Braille cells, but I would have to get it under somebody who's a tactile reader's fingers to really know that. And it's different person to person, student to student. Navigation, button placement, and availability. So going back to the ergonomics of the device and its design, that's really important. Your student may be overwhelmed by tons of keys and buttons and bells and whistles. They may need a simpler device. So that's something to consider. Noise. Noise is a big consideration as well. So the one with the magnetic pins from National Braille Press, the Braille Me, very loud. Very, very loud. So very different sound than most refreshable Braille displays. Does it have speech output on its own? Does it have a visual display component, or can you hook it up to something that gives it a visual display component? How much storage is actually on the device, or can you use external storage devices like thumb drives or SD cards? Is it easy to share files between other students and teachers? Does it support the use of a printer or embosser? Is that a need for your student? Does it have access to the internet? And does your student need that access? What type of connectivity does it use? So for example, if you're only planning on using this device with a tablet, well, you wouldn't want a device that purely has USB, even though that's not as common anymore, but you would want to make sure that you're able to connect the existing devices together. Uh, compatibility with Braille codes. And so I left this in here, even though I feel this is becoming less common now, as UEB is in full swing. It is here. It's not going anywhere. So that's becoming the default on devices. But if people, this used to be a problem prior to UEB being on devices. I'm sure there are still some older devices or maybe some devices out there that aren't fully integrated with UEB, but I sincerely doubt it now. But say you have an older adult who is, I have to have eBay. I'm not quite sure what to tell them about that anymore, except that if the Braille display has onboard translation for that, because you're not going to find it in iOS. I'm not sure about TalkBack, and I'm not sure about Freedom Scientific's JAWS. I don't know if eBay is an option still in those in that software and those screen readers. And you want to make sure it's compatible with screen readers. So for example, the Chameleon 20 and Mantis Q40, they don't work with Chromebox yet. So if you have a student who has a Chromebook, those devices won't pair with those yet, but they're working on it. So stay tuned. And cloud computing, you want to make sure that you can access cloud information because especially during these times, students have to be able to access maybe Google Drive, Google Classroom, other learning management systems like Blackboard or Canvas is very popular now. So there's just tons of platforms that students need to be able to access, and we want to make sure that those devices are compatible with that. Ooh, I'm running out of time. Writing recommendations. So I'll briefly go over this, but you know what to do when you write recommendations of accommodations for your students and you justify the reasons for that. Well, in an IEP, you're not really specifically supposed to name a device. You should be writing what that device does to meet your students' needs. So that way you're more likely to get what you are looking for, because if that device is the only one that does that particular thing that you're looking for, that's what you need to write. So this is not an exhaustive list, but this is a sample. Like the student needs navigational thumb keys along the front edge for efficient Braille reading. So you wouldn't want something that has it on the sides or along the top. You want those thumb keys for navigation. Cursor routing keys for editing text. There are some Braille displays that do not have those. Wi-Fi capability. So to download books to a library app. So as I'm saying these, think about what Braille display maybe I talked about earlier, if you can, and type it in the chat box if you think you know where I'm going. Wi-Fi capability to download books to a library app. And a good question here, because I see this happen a lot. Does it work within your school district's Wi-Fi infrastructure? I've seen school districts buy a piece of technology and the school district blocks it at every turn. So that's something you'd want to work closely with your IT department on. That should not dictate what the student gets, but it is an important thing to figure out before getting that device if you have a demo device. 40 cells of Refreshable Braille for reading fluency. It has basic note-taking ability and a USB slot for sharing files. Oh, thank you, Darla. Yeah, that is huge. You're right. So with these recommendations, I was kind of going toward, and of course I'd write more, but I was thinking of the Mantis. I had the Mantis in mind when I was writing this. So it has that QWERTY keyboard, 40 cells. So I'm writing what this device is essentially and what it does to justify this is the device that I want. Oh, where do I get devices? So you can use local vendors and agencies. Sometimes they are willing to loan them out, or you can go into an agency store. Maybe not now, but maybe in the future. You can go directly to the company. Sometimes they have devices they are willing to send out to you to trial. In Florida, we are very fortunate to have a lot of resources. We really, truly do. We are very, very lucky. We have our loan library here at the Florida Instructional Materials Center, and we have lots of different devices, and all the ones that I mentioned today, we have. Yes, I'm looking at my desk. We have them. The AT and UDL loan library. So they try to also buy different devices to have available, but sometimes we mirror each other. But they also are a resource for teachers here in Florida. And Florida Vision Technology is often so kind and ready and willing to loan devices. So definitely reach out to vendors, the company, or any of your other state resources, depending on what you have available. Oh, 5 minutes. Okay. So we talked about standards in the last session. So real quick, when should you begin to teach AT skills? We talked about early introduction to Braille devices in the last session, and I just think that is critical and important to have that exposure. But we're talking about kids that are in school age. Technology is actually written into some of our general standards. For example, in kindergarten. So this is a language arts standard. It says, with guidance and support from adults, explore a variety of digital tools to produce and publish writing, including in combination with peers. So you can definitely justify that a Braille display or definitely keyboarding should be introduced here. There needs to be some exploration of those devices happening here in kindergarten per the standards. Then in first grade, we're going to up the ante a little bit with guidance and support from adults. Use a variety of digital tools to produce and publish. So now we're looking at actually writing and using these tools. So using a keyboard, using a Braille display. Then in third grade, they are using technology to produce and publish writing using keyboarding skills. So they are very implicit about this, that you are to use keyboarding skills. So again, just to back up what I said earlier, that our students need to know how to use the keyboard. So anyway, they need ways to communicate digitally, just like every other student is. These are a list of training and support resources, but the one I'm going to focus on the most is the Wisconsin Center for the Blind and Visually Impaired. Oh my gosh. I stumbled upon this one day and my jaw dropped. Tons of resources about teaching Braille technology, tons, especially note takers. So if that is something that is difficult for you, intimidating, oh my gosh, tons of resources there. So highly recommend that link when you download this presentation. Lots of other wonderful resources on here. The future is now. So yes, single line Braille displays. We have those. Well, guess what? We also now have, throwing its hat into the ring, the Bristol, from Bristol, the Canute, which is a multi-line refreshable Braille display. However, it is super loud and the refresh rate is different, but hey, you know, single line Braille displays started at concept somewhere, and I'm sure they were just as clunky. So this technology is coming, and the price of the multi-line Braille display, it's like around $3,000. I can't remember the exact price, but $3,000 for multiple lines of refreshable Braille. Oh, whoa. I find that very, very exciting. But anyway, those are actually available. There is a production it's kind of stalled right now, so it's on back order, but it's actually available for purchase, but they said it's like a 3 to 6 month waiting period to get the device. So just putting that out there. But that's technology that's being developed. It's on the horizon. It's going to get better. Then Orbit Research, of course, has their tactile graphic display, the graffiti. That's $14,000. That made my jaw drop too. I was like, whew, that's very, very expensive. And so it just does display tactile graphics. So you could put a JPEG in there and it's going to give you some sort of image with different raised pin heights to give you an idea of what that image is. But this is just, you know, this is cool stuff. It may not be the most practical yet, maybe. So concept to reality, what's in the future? We have these things that are happening now. They're only going to maybe get better. But these are concepts that are out there, from the Bly tab, which I thought it was really cute that they called their Braille dots Tixels. So cute. I just love that name. Their Braille text to smart docs or Tixels. I got the opportunity to talk to this gentleman from New Haptics the other day, and he's really talking to TVIs out and about and learning about our field to make a refreshable Braille display, full page refreshable Braille display that's meaningful. They're really working on developing the technology to make it happen. So we know about the piezoelectric technology for these single line refreshable Braille displays. Well, they're looking at something different for a full page tablet-like refreshable Braille display. So they're working on that technology. So cool. People are thinking about this stuff. They're thinking about our students and our population. I also saw this cool polymer Braille concept, and they have like a hydraulic and latching mechanism instead of the piezoelectric, and that's the one that's in the bottom right hand corner. So that's kind of their concept. That's not a real thing, it's just a concept. And same with the Bly tab, which that's down at the bottom. It's kind of like a half page refreshable Braille display with a tablet. Oh, so it's 12:30. We can do this in the debriefing room. You can share out your experiences trialing devices or talk about trials and tribulations and your favorite Braille devices and why. We can talk all about that in the debriefing room. Here's my resources that I used. That's me. Thank you so much for your time and attention. I didn't have any tech issues. Woo! Thank you. Had some sound issues, but that's okay. We worked through it. And
Yeah.
evaluations.
Yeah, thank you for that wonderful presentation, Andrea. Whirlwind of technology. It's so exciting to see all of the options that are out there and how they're getting better all the time, which can only be good for our students. So if you would please take the time to do this short 4-question evaluation for the Florida Department of Education. The link is always on our events page on our website, or we have the QR code, the bit.ly FIMC-eval. So we really appreciate you taking the time to do that, because we do report that information back to the Florida Department of Education. So grab that link while it's there. And let's go ahead and do our closing code. So if you are looking for those 1.5 credit CEUs, the closing code for this session is cursor. I'll type it in the chat, CURSOR. And in order to get that credit, you're going to, again, we have a different QR code for that form. You're going to fill the form out, put in all of your information. Make sure you put your email address in there correctly, because otherwise the certificate might not be sent to you. So if you don't receive the certificate fairly quickly, then something went wrong and you need to reach out to us to figure out how we can fix that and make sure you get your certificate. So the link is on our events page as well. So our opening code, let's see if I can remember back. Oh, commands and cursors, all kinds of fun stuff. So we are going to leave this webinar session and head straight over to a debriefing room. The link for that is on our agenda. It's on the website for this event, and I will also quickly paste it into the chat. This is the same link we've been using all week. But so if you have more things you want to talk about with Andrea and Sherry, and I know some of our other FIMC people will be there as well. And then let me check my time, 1:30 is the Lego Braille Bricks. So if you are in Florida and you want to learn about those kits for your students, be sure to join us then. So thank you again, everybody, and to our captioner, Andrea, our fabulous presenters. We'll see you shortly.
Super. See you.
Bye.